the wedding hall in Victoria Island, Lagos, fell silent as 23-year-old Chukwuemeka Okonkwo stood up from his seat in the third row, his phone trembling in his hand. The pastor had just asked if anyone objected to the marriage between his father, Chief Obiora Okonkwo, and the radiant bride, Amara Nwosu, standing at the altar in her pristine white gown. "I object." Chukwuemeka's voice cut through the air like a machete through sugarcane. "What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from." 400 guests turned to stare. His father's face drained of color. Amara's perfectly painted smile froze. The bridesmaids gasped. Chukwuemeka walked down the aisle, his leather shoes echoing on the marble floor of the luxury event center. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst through his cream-colored agbada. "Emeka, sit down," Chief Obiora hissed, his voice barely audible but sharp with warning. "What are you doing?" "I'm saving you, Dad." Chukwuemeka held up his phone. "This woman you're about to marry? She's been stealing from you. And she's not who you think she is." The domestic betrayal playing out before the crowd made several guests pull out their own phones. This was the kind of drama that would trend on Nigerian Twitter for days. Amara's younger sister, one of the bridesmaids, clutched her bouquet tighter. The maid of honor took a step back from the bride. "Emeka, this is not the time or place," Chief Obiora said, his jaw clenched. At 58, he was a distinguished man, his graying beard neatly trimmed, his navy blue agbada embroidered with gold thread. He'd been a widower for 5 years after Chukwuemeka's mother, Adiz, died of breast cancer. "We will discuss this at home." "No, Dad. We discuss it now." Chukwuemeka turned to face the crowd. "For the past 8 months, everyone's been celebrating this wedding. My father, one of the most successful real estate developers in Lagos, finally finding love again. Beautiful Amara Nwosu, the pediatric nurse with the kind heart who cared for sick children at Lagos University Teaching Hospital. The perfect match." Amara's hands shook. "Chief, your son is having some kind of breakdown. Please, someone call." "I have bank statements," Chukwuemeka interrupted, his voice rising. "Transfer records. Text messages. Everything." He looked at his father. "Dad, do you remember when your company account was missing 12 million naira 3 months ago? You thought it was your accountant, Mr. Adeyemi. You fired him. His wife called me crying because they have 4 children and he lost everything." Chief Obiora's expression shifted from anger to confusion. "What are you talking about?" "It wasn't Mr. Adeyemi. It was her." Chukwuemeka pointed at Amara. The bride's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "And do you know why I found out? Because I hired a private investigator after I walked into your study 2 weeks ago and saw her going through your safe." The revelation of infidelity and emotional manipulation rippled through the crowd in whispers. Several guests leaned forward in their seats. The pastor stepped back from the altar, clearly unsure how to proceed. The traditional wedding drummer in the corner had stopped playing entirely. "You're lying." Amara finally found her voice. "Chief, your son has been jealous of me from the beginning. He never wanted you to remarry. He's making all of this up." "Then explain the offshore account in the Cayman Islands," Chukwuemeka said calmly. "The one where the money ended up. The one registered under your real name, Chidinma Okeke, not Amara Nwosu." The wedding hall erupted. Guests stood up. Phones captured every moment. Chief Obiora stumbled backward, and his best man, Femi Adelik, caught his arm to steady him. "Her real name." Chief Obiora's voice was barely a whisper. Chukwuemeka nodded, his heart breaking for his father even as relief flooded through him. "Dad, Amara Nwosu died in a car accident 6 years ago in Enugu. This woman stole her identity. Her real name is Chidinma Okeke, and she's wanted by the EFCC for financial fraud in 3 states. She's not a pediatric nurse. She's a professional con artist who targets wealthy widowers." Amara, or Chidinma, made a run for it. Her white wedding gown bunched in her hands as she kicked off her heels and sprinted toward the side exit. Her maid of honor grabbed at her but missed. Two of the groomsmen, caught off guard, watched her blur past them. "Someone stop her!" Chief Obiora's voice boomed across the hall. But Chukwuemeka was already moving. He'd played football at university, and his reflexes were sharp. He caught up to her just as she reached the door, grabbing the train of her dress. The fabric tore with a loud rip, but it slowed her down enough for Femi and two security guards to reach them. "Let me go!" Chidinma screamed, clawing at Chukwuemeka's arms. Her carefully styled wig shifted on her head. "You don't understand. I love him. I really love him." "You love his money," Chukwuemeka said coldly. Chief Obiora approached them slowly, his face a mask of devastation and rage. "Call the police," he said to Femi. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. "Now." As the security guards held the struggling bride, Chief Obiora pulled out his phone and dialed. His fingers moved mechanically, as if he were operating on autopilot. When the call connected, his voice was firm despite the chaos around them. "This is Chief Obiora Okonkwo. I'm at the Pearl Gardens Event Center on Victoria Island. I need police here immediately. I have a woman in custody wanted for fraud and identity theft." "Yes, I'll hold." Chukwuemeka watched his father, seeing the proud man's shoulders sag under the weight of this public disgrace. Around them, guests whispered and recorded. This story would be everywhere by nightfall: blogs, social media, evening news. His father's reputation, carefully built over decades, was now intertwined with scandal. But as Chief Obiora's eyes met his son's, something passed between them. Gratitude, trust, and perhaps, underneath the devastation, relief that the truth had come out before it was too late. Chidinma had stopped struggling. She stood between the security guards, her elaborate makeup beginning to run with tears. "He would have been happy with me," she whispered. "I would have made him happy." "You would have destroyed him," Chukwuemeka replied. The sound of police sirens cut through the afternoon air. Through the glass doors, Chukwuemeka could see two police vehicles pulling into the event center's circular driveway. The wedding that was supposed to unite two families in joy had become a crime scene. And somewhere in the crowd of shocked guests, someone was already typing up the story that would dominate Lagos gossip for months to come. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. 3 hours later, Chukwuemeka sat in his father's study in the Okonkwo family mansion in Ikoyi, watching as Chief Obiora paced back and forth across the Persian rug. The police had taken Chidinma away in handcuffs, and the guests had dispersed, but the chaos still felt present in the air. The house staff moved quietly through the halls, unsure whether to clear away the wedding decorations or leave them as evidence of the day's disaster. Chief Obiora had removed his agbada and now wore only his white shirt and trousers. His face looked older somehow, as if the betrayal had aged him years in hours. He poured himself a glass of whiskey from the crystal decanter on his mahogany desk but didn't drink it. Just held it, staring at the amber liquid. "Tell me everything," he finally said. "From the beginning." Chukwuemeka shifted in the leather chair. He'd been dreading this conversation almost as much as the confrontation at the wedding. "It started about 3 months ago. You remember when you went to Abuja for that government housing project?" Chief Obiora nodded. "I came home early from work one day. My meeting in Lekki was cancelled. When I walked in, I heard voices from your study. The door was slightly open." Chukwuemeka's hands clenched into fists at the memory. "I saw Amara, Chidinma, at your safe. She had it open and was taking out documents. Your property deeds, bank books, everything. Why didn't you tell me immediately?" His father's voice held no accusation, only tired confusion. "Because I wasn't sure what I was seeing. I thought maybe you'd asked her to get something for you. You were trusting her more and more, giving her access to things." Chukwuemeka stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the evening settling over Lagos. The city lights were beginning to twinkle. "But then I saw her photograph some of the documents with her phone. That's when I knew something was wrong." Chief Obiora finally took a sip of his whiskey. "Go on." "I confronted her the next day when you were at the office. She was here, planning wedding details with the caterers. Chukwuemeka turned to face his father. She acted shocked, said she was only looking for your passport because you needed it for the honeymoon bookings. But her story didn't make sense. The passport wasn't in the safe, it was in your bedroom drawer, where it always is. The memory of that confrontation still made Chukwuemeka's skin crawl. The way Chidinma's sweet demeanor had cracked for just a moment, showing something cold and calculating beneath. Then, just as quickly, she'd covered it with tears and apologies, playing the wounded innocent. She cried. She said she was sorry for going through your things. She begged me not to tell you because you'd think she was after your money. Chukwuemeka's voice hardened. That's when I knew she was lying. Because why would an innocent person immediately worry about looking like they were after money? Chief Obiora sank into his desk chair. The 12 million naira. You mentioned that at the wedding. I hired a private investigator. His name is Tun Bakare, former police detective, very thorough. It took him 6 weeks, but he traced everything. Chukwuemeka pulled out his phone and opened a folder of documents. Chidinma Okeke has been running this con for 8 years. She targets wealthy widowers, gains their trust, steals their money, and disappears before the wedding. You would have been her 5th victim. 5th. Chief Obiora's hand slammed down on the desk. 5 men. The first was a banker in Port Harcourt. She got away with 20 million naira. The second was a doctor in Abuja, 35 million. Then a businessman in Enugu, another in Ibadan. By the time Tun tracked her pattern, she'd stolen over 200 million naira total. Chukwuemeka handed his father the phone. This is just a summary. The full report is on your email. Chief Obiora scrolled through the documents, his face growing darker with each page. Photos of Chidinma with different men, at different weddings that never happened. Copies of police reports from other states. Bank transfer records showing money moving through shell companies and offshore accounts. She was living a double life, Chukwuemeka continued. The hospital where she claimed to work? She volunteered there once a month as a charity visitor, enough to learn the layout and staff names. Her apartment in Yaba? Rented under a fake name. Even her family, the sister who was a bridesmaid? That was an actress she paid. The whole thing was a performance. Chief Obiora set the phone down carefully, as if it might explode. But we met at the charity gala. She was representing the hospital. She crashed the gala. Tund has footage from the security cameras. She wasn't on the guest list. She walked in behind a large group, and no one checked. She'd been following you for weeks before that, learning your schedule, your habits, your pain points. Chukwuemeka's voice softened. She knew you were lonely. She knew you missed Mom. She used that. The emotional manipulation at the heart of the con was the cruelest part. Chukwuemeka had watched his father, a man who built buildings and businesses with iron will and sharp intelligence, turn soft and vulnerable under Chidinma's influence. Love, or what looked like love, had made Chief Obiora blind. How did she get the money out? The 12 million. Chief Obiora asked. She convinced your accountant, Mr. Adeyemi, that you'd approved a transfer for a new property investment. She forged your signature on the authorization. By the time you noticed it was missing, she'd already moved it through 3 different accounts and offshore. She would have disappeared right after the wedding, probably the honeymoon, and you'd never have recovered a kobo. Chief Obiora stood up abruptly and walked to the window, his back to Chukwuemeka. For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside, Lagos hummed with evening traffic, generators powering up, the normal sounds of life continuing while their world had shattered. I thought I loved her, Chief Obiora said quietly. Is that foolish? No, Dad. It's human. Your mother would have seen through her. Chief Obiora's voice cracked. Adiz had instincts about people. She always knew when someone wasn't genuine. Chukwuemeka moved to stand beside his father. Mom would be proud of you for having the courage to open your heart again. And she'd be proud that you're standing up to this now. Chief Obiora turned to face his son, and for the first time since the wedding disaster, he smiled, small, sad, but real. She'd be proud of you. You saved your old man from making the biggest mistake of his life." They stood there in the growing darkness, father and son, processing the weight of the betrayal and the relief of the truth. Outside, Chukwuemeka could hear the staff finally beginning to take down the wedding decorations that had been prepared for the reception that would never happen. The celebration of a marriage that was built on lies. Then Chief Obiora's phone rang. He answered it immediately, his business instincts overriding his emotional exhaustion. Obiora Okonkwo speaking. Chukwuemeka watched his father's expression change from tired to alert to furious in the span of seconds. "What do you mean she's made bail?" Chief Obiora demanded into the phone. "How is that possible? You arrested her 3 hours ago." He listened, his jaw clenching. "Find out who posted it and call me back immediately." He ended the call and turned to Chukwuemeka. "She's out. Someone posted 5 million naira bail for her." "Who would do that?" "That's what we're going to find out." Chief Obiora's eyes had taken on the hard gleam Chukwuemeka recognized from his father's business negotiations. Because whoever bailed her out is either another victim of her con, or they're part of it. The thought sent ice through Chukwuemeka's veins. If Chidinma had an accomplice, someone with enough resources to post that kind of bail, then stopping the wedding might have been only the first battle in a longer war. Chief Obiora was already on the phone again, calling his lawyer, his security team, his contacts in the police force. The man who'd been lost in heartbreak an hour ago had transformed back into the shrewd businessman who'd built an empire. But underneath that armor, Chukwuemeka could see the wound left by the cheating spouse and domestic betrayal, a wound that might take years to heal. And somewhere out in Lagos, Chidinma Okeke was free again, possibly planning her next move. If you're loving this story so far, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you think about Chidinma's betrayal. Don't forget to subscribe, we're just getting started. The morning after the failed wedding, Chukwuemeka drove through the chaotic streets of Lagos Island toward the office of Tun Bakare, the private investigator who'd uncovered Chidinma's true identity. The sun beat down mercilessly on the traffic-clogged roads, and hawkers weaved between cars selling everything from phone chargers to roasted plantains. Chukwuemeka barely noticed. His mind was racing with questions about who had posted Chidinma's bail. Tun's office was tucked above a pharmacy on Broad Street, accessible only by a narrow staircase that smelled of antiseptic and fried akara from the food vendor on the corner. Chukwuemeka climbed the stairs 2 at a time and pushed open the frosted glass door marked Bakare Investigations. Tund looked up from his computer, his weathered face breaking into a grin. At 52, he was lean and sharp-eyed, with gray threading through his close-cropped hair. "I saw the videos online. That was quite a show yesterday." "You're trending on Twitter," Chukwuemeka said, not sitting down. "Everyone's calling you the wedding hero." "I'm calling you a fool for not giving me advance warning so I could have brought more evidence to the scene." Tund gestured to the chair across from his cluttered desk. "Sit. You look like you haven't slept." Chukwuemeka collapsed into the chair. "She made bail. 5 million naira. Posted by someone named Ikenna Obesai. Does that name mean anything to you?" Tun's expression shifted immediately. He turned to his computer and began typing rapidly. "Ikenna Obesai. Give me a minute." While Tund worked, Chukwuemeka looked around the small office. The walls were covered with photos and newspaper clippings from Tun's days as a police detective. Solved cases, commendations, a few pictures of him shaking hands with government officials. Then there were the newer additions, surveillance photos, printed emails, evidence of the more private work he did now. "Found him," Tun said finally. "Ikenna Obesai, 43 years old. Investment banker with First Capital Bank. Lives in a penthouse in Victoria Island. Married with 3 children." He turned the computer screen toward Chukwuemeka. "And look at this, 6 months ago, he reported his wife, Ngozi Obesai, missing." Chukwuemeka leaned forward, studying the screen. The missing persons report showed a photo of a beautiful woman with warm eyes and a bright smile. Missing how? She left for work one morning and never came home. Her car was found abandoned at the Murtala Muhammad Airport parking lot. No trace of her since. Tund pulled up another window. The police investigated for 2 months but found nothing. No activity on her bank accounts, no use of her passport, no phone records. She just vanished. You think Chidinma has something to do with it? I think it's too much of a coincidence that Ikenna Obesai just happened to post bail for a woman he supposedly doesn't know. Tund opened another file on his computer. I'm going to make some calls. But Emeka, if this Ikenna is involved with Chidinma willingly, then we might be dealing with something bigger than just a romance con. The co-parenting conflict and emotional manipulation inherent in Ikenna's situation, a man with 3 children whose mother had disappeared, added a darker dimension to the story. Chukwuemeka felt his stomach twist. What if she's targeting multiple men at once? Chukwuemeka suggested. What if my dad wasn't the only one? Then we need to find out fast. Tund reached for his phone. I have a contact at First Capital Bank. Let me see what I can dig up about Mr. Obesai's finances. If he's moving money around suspiciously, we'll know. While Tund made his calls, Chukwuemeka pulled out his own phone and scrolled through the aftermath of yesterday's disaster. The wedding scandal was everywhere. Blogs, Instagram, Twitter, even international news sites had picked it up. Nigerian wedding stopped. Bride exposed as con artist, screamed one headline. Some articles portrayed Chief Obiora sympathetically. Others treated the whole thing as entertainment, complete with memes and jokes. His phone buzzed with a call from his father. Emeka, where are you? Chief Obiora's voice was tight with controlled anger. At Tund's office. We're looking into the man who posted Chidinma's bail. Come home immediately. She's here. Chukwuemeka froze. What do you mean she's here? Chidinma is at our front gate with 2 lawyers and a camera crew. She's claiming defamation and demanding access to her personal belongings from the house. Chief Obiora's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. And she's threatening to sue us for 50 million naira unless we publicly apologize. The audacity of it stole Chukwuemeka's breath. I'm on my way. He ended the call and looked at Tund. She's at my father's house. With lawyers. Tund stood up, grabbing his car keys and a camera from his desk drawer. Then let's go meet her. Because if she's bold enough to show up there after yesterday, she's either desperate or she has leverage we don't know about yet. The drive to Ikoyi took 40 minutes in the mid-morning traffic. The whole time, Chukwuemeka's mind spun with possibilities. What could Chidinma possibly have that would make her think she could threaten them? They had evidence of her crimes, her true identity, her pattern of theft. She should be running, hiding, preparing for trial. Instead, she was launching a counterattack. When they pulled up to the Okonkwo mansion, Chukwuemeka saw the scene his father had described. Chidinma stood outside the tall iron gates, dressed in a demure blue dress and sunglasses, flanked by 2 men in dark suits carrying briefcases. A small camera crew from one of Lagos's entertainment news channels was filming her, and a reporter with a microphone was asking questions. This is a clear case of character assassination, Chidinma was saying to the camera, her voice steady and calm. Chief Okonkwo's son has mental health issues that the family has tried to keep private. His obsession with me and his jealousy of his father's happiness led him to fabricate these horrible lies. I'm here to collect my things and to demand justice. Chukwuemeka felt rage surge through him. She was twisting everything, playing the victim, using the media to create a counter-narrative. That's brilliant, Tund muttered beside him. Evil, but brilliant. She's creating reasonable doubt in the court of public opinion before her criminal trial even starts. They parked behind the camera crew, and Chukwuemeka got out of the car. The reporter spotted him immediately. Mr. Okonkwo. Mr. Okonkwo, can you respond to Ms. Okeke's allegations? Chidinma turned, and even through her sunglasses, Chukwuemeka could sense her cold stare. One of her lawyers stepped forward. Mr. Okonkwo, I'm Barrister Adewale Martins. My client has been grievously slandered. We have documentation proving that the so-called evidence presented yesterday was fabricated. Unless your family is willing to make a public retraction and apology, we will be filing a 50 million naira lawsuit for defamation and emotional distress. Documentation. Chukwuemeka kept his voice level. What documentation could possibly dispute bank records, police reports, and identity theft evidence? Barrister Martins smiled coldly. My client has a birth certificate, national ID, and employment records all confirming her identity as Amara Nwosu. We also have character witnesses from Lagos University Teaching Hospital who will testify to her employment there. It seems, Mr. Okonkwo, that you've been fed false information by a disreputable private investigator with a history of fabricating evidence. That last part was aimed at Tund, who was now recording everything with his camera. Chukwuemeka felt the ground shift beneath him. Was it possible? Could Chidinma have forged documents so perfectly that they could counter the real evidence? The front gate opened, and Chief Obiora emerged, flanked by his own lawyer, a woman named Folake Ibrahim, known throughout Lagos as one of the most ruthless litigators in the country. Ms. Okeke, Folake said sharply, or should I say Ms. Nwosu, or perhaps Ms. whoever you really are. If you set foot on this property, you'll be arrested for trespassing. And regarding your lawsuit threat, we welcome it. Discovery will be fascinating. Chief Obiora, Chidinma called out, removing her sunglasses to reveal red-rimmed eyes. Please. I loved you. I still love you. Your son has poisoned your mind against me. Can't we talk privately? Just the two of us. The manipulation was masterful. Her voice broke on the last words, and she looked genuinely heartbroken. For a moment, Chukwuemeka saw his father waver, the wound of yesterday's betrayal still raw. There's nothing to discuss, Chief Obiora said, but his voice lacked its usual force. What about the baby? Chidinma said quietly. The world stopped. What baby? Chukwuemeka demanded. Chidinma placed a hand on her flat stomach. I'm 6 weeks pregnant, Chief. With your child. Did your son tell you that? Or was he too busy destroying our family before it could even begin? The camera crew surged forward. The reporter's eyes gleamed with the kind of story that could make a career. Chief Obiora's face went ashen. Chukwuemeka felt like he'd been punched in the gut. She's lying, he said, but even to his own ears, his voice sounded uncertain. Chidinma pulled a document from her purse and handed it to her lawyer, who walked it to the gate. Folake took it and scanned it quickly. Her expression darkened. It's a pregnancy test result from St. Nicholas Hospital, Folake said quietly to Chief Obiora. Dated 2 weeks ago. Positive. Chief Obiora took the paper with shaking hands. Chukwuemeka watched his father's careful control begin to crumble. If Chidinma really was pregnant, everything became infinitely more complicated. A child would tie Chief Obiora to her forever, would give her leverage for years to come, would complicate any criminal prosecution. This changes nothing about the fraud charges, Folake said firmly, but Chukwuemeka could hear the worry in her voice. Perhaps we could discuss a settlement, Barrister Martins suggested smoothly. My client withdraws her lawsuit, you withdraw your criminal complaints, and we arrange for appropriate support for the child. Everyone walks away. No more public disgrace, no more legal fees, no more scandal. It was blackmail dressed in legal language. And from the look on his father's face, Chukwuemeka could see it was working. Dad, don't, Chukwuemeka said urgently. This could be another con. We need to verify. My grandchild, Chief Obiora said softly, still staring at the paper. Tund stepped forward, his camera still recording. Mr. Obesai posted your bail, Ms. Okeke. Or should I ask about his missing wife, Ngozi? Curious timing, don't you think? Chidinma's composed expression cracked for just a second. That's when Chukwuemeka knew, the pregnancy might be real, but it was just another weapon in her arsenal. And somehow, it connected to Ikenna Obesai and his missing wife. What are your thoughts on this twist? Comment below whether you think the pregnancy is real. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This story is about to get even more intense. 3 days after Chidinma's bombshell announcement at the gates, Chukwuemeka sat in a sterile medical office in Lekki, waiting for the results of a paternity test that couldn't definitively prove anything yet but might at least verify the pregnancy's timeline. Chief Obiora had insisted on a private doctor, someone who could be discreet. The public disgrace was bad enough without feeding more details to the media frenzy. Chukwuemeka's phone vibrated with another news alert. He'd stopped reading them after the first 100, but the headlines were burned into his mind. Wedding drama deepens. Alleged con artist claims pregnancy. Chief Okonkwo's son versus father's fiancé. Who's lying? Lagos society wedding scandal continues. His father sat beside him, silent and hollowed out. Chief Obiora had barely spoken since Chidinma's revelation. He'd moved through the house like a ghost, attending business meetings mechanically, signing documents without really reading them. The vibrant man who'd been excited about remarrying had been replaced by someone Chukwuemeka barely recognized. "Dad, whatever the doctor says, we're not backing down," Chukwuemeka said firmly. "Even if she is pregnant, it doesn't erase what she did." Chief Obiora didn't respond. He just stared at the medical diplomas on the wall, his hands folded in his lap. The door opened, and Dr. Oluwatoyin Adebayo entered, a tall woman in her 40s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She sat behind her desk and opened a manila folder. "Chief Okonkwo, Mr. Okonkwo, thank you for your patience." She looked between them carefully. "The results are conclusive. Ms. Okeke is indeed pregnant, approximately 7 weeks based on the blood work and ultrasound." Chief Obiora closed his eyes. "However," Dr. Adebayo continued, and something in her tone made Chukwuemeka lean forward, "I need to inform you of something unusual. When we ran the standard panels, we found markers suggesting this isn't Ms. Okeke's first pregnancy. She's had at least 2 previous pregnancies that were carried to term." "She has children?" Chukwuemeka's mind raced. She never mentioned children. Whether she has living children or gave them up for adoption, I can't say. But the medical history is clear. Dr. Adebayo folded her hands on the desk. "Chief, I'm going to be direct because I believe you need to hear this. The pattern we're seeing, a woman with a hidden reproductive history becoming pregnant with a wealthy man during a relationship that's being legally contested, it's not uncommon in cases of reproductive coercion or financial manipulation." "Meaning she got pregnant on purpose," Chief Obiora said flatly. "To trap me. I can't make that determination. But I would advise extreme caution moving forward, particularly regarding any settlements or agreements that might be tied to the child's paternity and support." After they left the medical office, Chukwuemeka drove them back to Ikoyi in heavy silence. The afternoon sun turned Lagos into a shimmering heat haze. Beside him, his father finally spoke. "I slept with her twice without protection. She said she was on birth control." Chief Obiora's voice was hollow. "I was a fool. You were in love. Or thought you were. Same thing in the end." Chief Obiora turned to look at his son. "What do I do, Emeka? If that child is mine, I can't abandon it. Your mother would never forgive me, and I'd never forgive myself." "We don't let her use the baby to escape justice," Chukwuemeka said firmly. "We pursue the fraud charges, we prove her identity theft, and if the child is yours, we sue for full custody when it's born. She doesn't get to steal from you and then use your child as a shield." Chief Obiora nodded slowly, some steel returning to his spine. "You're right. Call Folake. Tell her we're not settling. We're going to court." But when they arrived home, they found Tund Bakare waiting for them in the driveway, his expression grim. "We need to talk," Tund said without preamble. "Inside. Now." In Chief Obiora's study, Tund spread photographs and documents across the desk. "I've been tracking Ikenna Obesai's movements since he posted Chidinma's bail. This morning, I followed him to a property in Lekki Phase 1. Expensive area, gated estate. He went inside and stayed for 3 hours. He pointed to a photograph showing a modern house with high walls and security cameras. This property is owned by a shell company registered in Dubai. And guess who's been living there for the past 4 months? Chidinma Okeke. Or one of her aliases, anyway." Chukwuemeka studied the photos. "So Ikenna knows where she lives. They're connected. More than connected. They're partners." Tund pulled up another photo on his phone. "I managed to get a long-range shot through one of the windows. Look who else was at that meeting." Chukwuemeka's blood ran cold. In the grainy photograph, he could see Chidinma seated at a dining table with Ikenna Obesai and 2 other people, a woman who looked to be in her 60s, expensively dressed, and a younger man in his 30s wearing traditional attire. The older woman is Patience Okafor, Tund explained. She's a Lagos socialite, widow of a shipping magnate who died 5 years ago under suspicious circumstances. The man is her son, Obinna Okafor. And here's where it gets interesting. 3 years ago, Patience reported one of her accountants for embezzlement. The accountant swore he was set up by a woman matching Chidinma's description, who called herself Blessing Nwankwo at the time. Chief Obiora sank into his chair. How many people are involved in this? I think we're looking at a syndicate. Chidinma is the face. She targets the men. But there are others handling the money laundering, the document forgery, maybe even the identity theft of real people. Tund pulled out more documents. I've been digging into Ikenna Obesai's finances. His bank approved a personal loan of 40 million naira 6 weeks ago. That money disappeared into offshore accounts within days. His missing wife, Chukwuemeka said suddenly. What if she found out about the con? What if she discovered Ikenna was involved and threatened to expose them? The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. They weren't just dealing with financial fraud and domestic betrayal anymore. If Ngozi Obesai had been silenced because she knew too much, then they were dealing with something far darker. We need to go to the police, Chief Obiora said. Real police, not the local officers who can be bought off. We take this to the commissioner. With respect, Chief, the police had their chance with Ngozi Obesai's disappearance and found nothing. These people are professionals. They know how to cover their tracks. Tund leaned forward. But there's another way. If we can get inside that house in Lekki, if we can find evidence of the money laundering operation or documents connecting them to other victims, then we'd have something the police can't ignore. You want to break in? Chukwuemeka asked. I want to gather evidence. Legally gray, perhaps, but we're running out of options. Tund looked at Chief Obiora. She's carrying what might be your grandchild. Every day we wait, she's building her narrative, finding more lawyers, creating more leverage. We need to act. Chief Obiora stood and walked to the window, his back to them. Outside, the sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. When he turned back, his expression was resolute. Do it. But carefully. I won't have my son arrested for breaking and entering on top of everything else. He looked at Chukwuemeka. You stay out of it. This is Tund's area of expertise. No way, Chukwuemeka objected. I started this. I'm seeing it through. Emeka. Dad, I'm 23, not 12. I can make my own decisions. Chukwuemeka turned to Tund. When do we go? Tund checked his phone. According to the housekeeper's schedule I tracked, she leaves every evening at 7. Chidinma usually goes out around 9 to meet with her lawyers or Ikenna. That gives us a 2-hour window tomorrow night. Chief Obiora looked between them, resignation and pride warring on his face. If you're caught, I never authorized this. Understand. Understood, they said in unison. After Tund left, Chukwuemeka found his father still in the study, nursing another whiskey. The emotional manipulation and cheating spouse situation had taken its toll. Chief Obiora looked like he'd aged a decade in less than a week. Your mother and I used to talk about grandchildren, Chief Obiora said quietly. She wanted a house full of them. Said she'd spoil them rotten and send them home to you hyped up on sugar and mischief. He smiled sadly. Now I might have a grandchild I can never trust to be alone with its mother. Chukwuemeka sat beside his father. We'll figure it out. One step at a time. I keep wondering what I missed. What red flags did I ignore because I was lonely? Chief Obiora swirled the whiskey in his glass. She was so perfect. Too perfect, maybe. Always saying the right thing, doing the right thing. I thought I'd found someone special. Instead, I found a professional actress. It's not your fault, Dad. Isn't it? I'm supposed to be smart, successful. People trust me with millions in business deals. But I couldn't see through one woman's lies. Before Chukwuemeka could respond, His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Okonkwo? A woman's voice, shaky and afraid. My name is Ngozi Obesai. I need your help. I saw what happened at your father's wedding on the news, and I think you're the only one who can stop them before someone else disappears. Chukwuemeka's hand tightened on the phone. Mrs. Obesai, you're alive. Barely. They've been keeping me in a house in Betrayal. I escaped 3 hours ago. Please, I don't know who else to trust. My husband. Her voice broke. My husband is one of them. He helped them. And now they're planning something bigger. Something involving your father's company. Where are you now? A hotel in Aja. The Golden Gate Lodge. Room 212. But please, come alone. If they find out I contacted you, if they see police, they'll know I told you everything, and, she was crying now. Please. I just want to see my children again. Chukwuemeka looked at his father, who'd heard enough of the conversation to understand. Chief Obiora nodded. I'm coming, Chukwuemeka said. Stay in your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. He ended the call and stood up. I have to go. I'm coming with you, Chief Obiora said, already reaching for his car keys. Dad, if this is a trap, then we face it together. That woman might have answers that save us. Or she might be part of the con. Either way, you're not going alone. They drove through Lagos's nighttime traffic, streetlights and generator-powered shops, creating a chaotic urban landscape. Chukwuemeka's mind raced with possibilities. If Ngozi Obesai was really alive, if she really had been held captive, then the infidelity in marriage and domestic betrayal they'd uncovered was just the surface of something much worse. The Golden Gate Lodge was a mid-range hotel tucked between a fuel station and a shopping plaza in Aja. Not the kind of place Ikenna Obesai would think to look for his wife. They parked and made their way to room 212, Chief Obiora's security guard trailing discreetly behind them. Chukwuemeka knocked. Mrs. Obesai? It's Chukwuemeka Okonkwo. The door opened a crack, a chain lock still in place. A woman's frightened eyes peered out. Are you alone? Did anyone follow you? Just my father and our security. Please, we need to talk. The door closed, the chain rattled, and then it opened fully. Ngozi Obesai looked nothing like her missing person photo. She was gaunt, her hair unkempt, her clothes, cheap market clothes, not the designer brand she'd worn before, hanging off her thin frame. But her eyes were sharp and desperate. Thank God, she whispered, pulling them inside. Thank God you came. Chief Obiora's security guard checked the hallway and positioned himself outside the door. Inside the small room, Ngozi sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking. Tell us everything, Chief Obiora said gently. From the beginning. Ngozi took a shuddering breath. 6 months ago, I found messages on my husband's phone. He was transferring money to a woman named Chidinma. Large amounts. Millions. When I confronted him, he told me it was for a business investment. But I didn't believe him. So I hired someone to follow him. And Chukwuemeka prompted. He was meeting her at that house in Lekki. I went there one day when I knew he'd be there. I climbed the back wall and looked through a window. Tears streamed down her face. They were with other people, planning. Your father wasn't their only target, Mr. Okonkwo. There were at least 5 other men they were working on. They had files on all of them, personal information, financial records, weak points to exploit. Chief Obiora's face hardened. What happened when they found you? Ikenna saw me. He chased me down, and then Chidinma was there with another man. Big guy, looked like a bodyguard. They grabbed me and took me to a house in Betrayal. They kept me locked in a room. Said if I cooperated, if I stayed quiet, they'd let me go once all their operations were complete. But I knew they were lying. I heard them talking about making it look like I'd run away or had an accident. How did you escape? Chukwuemeka asked. The man guarding me today got drunk. He fell asleep, and I found his phone. I called a taxi, climbed out a window, and ran. I've been too scared to go to the police because Ikenna has connections there. He bragged about it. Said he had officers on his payroll. She looked between them desperately. But when I saw the news about your father's wedding, I thought maybe you'd believe me. Maybe together we could stop them. You mentioned they're planning something with my father's company, Chief Obiora said. What? Ngozi pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. I stole this from the house in Betrayal. It's a list of properties your company owns. They're planning to use forged documents to transfer ownership of 3 of your commercial buildings to shell companies. With all the chaos from the wedding scandal, they think no one will notice until it's too late. Chief Obiora took the paper, his hands trembling with rage. The properties listed represented over 200 million naira in assets. When? I don't know exactly. They were waiting for the wedding to happen first, probably so Chidinma would have legal standing as your wife to help with the transfers. Ngozi stood up, swaying slightly. I haven't eaten properly in days. I don't have money, I can't go home, and I'm terrified they'll find me. Please, you have to help me. We will, Chief Obiora assured her. You'll come with us. We have a safe house, somewhere they won't think to look. And tomorrow, we're taking all of this to the Commissioner of Police myself. Not the local station, the top. With your testimony, we can bring them all down. But even as his father spoke, Chukwuemeka felt uneasy. Something about Ngozi's story was too convenient, too perfectly timed. The way she'd escaped after months of captivity, right when they needed answers. The fact that she'd managed to steal documents outlining the entire plot. Mrs. Obesai, Chukwuemeka said carefully, why did you wait 6 months to escape? If this man was drunk today, surely there were other opportunities. Ngozi's eyes flickered, just for a second. I was scared. They threatened my children. Said if I ran, they'd hurt my babies. But you ran today anyway? Because I saw the news. I realized they were never going to let me go. So I had to take the chance. She looked at Chief Obiora. Please, you have to believe me. I'm not part of this. I'm a victim, just like you. Chukwuemeka pulled his father aside. Dad, we need to verify her story before we do anything. Call Tund, have him check the house in Betrayal, confirm she was really held there. She's clearly traumatized, Emeka. Look at her. Or she's another actress. Dad, think about it. She appears right when we're investigating, with all the answers we need, but she can't go to the police because they're supposedly corrupt? It's too neat. Before Chief Obiora could respond, the window shattered. Glass exploded inward as something metal crashed through, trailing smoke. A flashbang grenade. Get down! The security guard shouted from the hallway. But it was too late. The grenade detonated with a deafening bang and blinding light. Chukwuemeka felt himself thrown backward, his ears ringing, his vision white. He heard shouting, felt hands grabbing him, dragged him forward. When his vision cleared seconds later, he was on the ground outside the hotel room. His father was beside him, looking dazed. Their security guard was unconscious in the hallway. And Ngozi Obesai was gone, the room empty except for broken glass and the smell of smoke. It was a trap, Chukwuemeka gasped, his ears still ringing. She let us here so they could. But he didn't get to finish. His father's face had gone white, and he was clutching his chest. Dad! Chukwuemeka scrambled to him. Dad! Chief Obiora tried to speak, but no words came out. His breath came in short, painful gasps. Heart attack. The stress, the shock, the betrayal, it had finally broken him. Someone call an ambulance. Chukwuemeka screamed. Please. Someone help. As hotel staff rushed toward them and chaos erupted in the hallway, Chukwuemeka held his father and watched the night swallow any trace of Ngozi Obesai. The revenge story playing out around them had just turned deadly, and he realized with crystal clarity that they'd been outmaneuvered from the beginning. Are you on the edge of your seat yet? Smash that like button and subscribe. We're only halfway through this revenge story, and trust me, it gets even crazier. Comment your theories about Ngozi below. The emergency room at Lagos University Teaching Hospital smelled of antiseptic and fear. Chukwuemeka sat in the waiting area, his clothes still covered in glass dust from the flashbang, his hands shaking from adrenaline. It had been 2 hours since the ambulance rushed Chief Obiora in, and the doctors hadn't emerged with news yet. Tund Bakare arrived at midnight, out of breath from running through the hospital corridors. I came as soon as I got your message. How is he? I don't know. They won't tell me anything. He collapsed right after the attack. Chest pains, couldn't breathe. Chukwuemeka's voice cracked. Tund, if he dies, it's my fault. I pushed this investigation. I made him confront her at the wedding. Stop. Tund sat beside him, his voice firm. None of this is your fault. That woman and her partners, they're the ones who did this. Not you. A doctor in green scrubs emerged from the double doors. Family of Chief Obiora Okonkwo. Chukwuemeka shot to his feet. I'm his son. How is he? He's stable. He experienced a cardiac event brought on by extreme stress, but we've got him on medication and he's resting now. However, Mr. Okonkwo, your father's heart is weak. Any more stress like tonight could be fatal. He needs rest, calm, and absolutely no excitement for the next several weeks. The words hit Chukwuemeka like a physical blow. No more excitement meant no more confrontations, no more investigations. While Chidinma and her syndicate operated freely, his father had to hide away and recover. Can I see him? Briefly. Room 304. But he's sedated, so don't expect much conversation. Chief Obiora looked small in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily. His breathing was regular but shallow. Chukwuemeka pulled a chair close and took his father's hand. I'm sorry, Dad, he whispered. I'm going to fix this. I promise. Back in the waiting room, Tund had news. I went to the Golden Gate Lodge after I got your call. The hotel clerk said the room was paid for in cash 2 days ago by a man matching Ikenna Obesai's description. And there's more. I checked the house in Badagry that Ngozi mentioned. It exists, but it's been empty for months. No signs anyone was held there. So the whole thing was a setup. But why? What did they gain by luring us there and attacking us? Tund pulled out his tablet and showed Chukwuemeka security footage he'd obtained. While you were at that hotel, someone broke into your father's office at the company headquarters. They had 30 minutes while security was distracted by a fake emergency call, also traced back to Ikenna's phone. Whatever they were looking for, they found it. Chukwuemeka felt sick. The property documents. Ngozi, or whoever she really was, mentioned my dad's commercial buildings. They were creating a distraction so they could steal what they needed to forge the transfers. And they succeeded. Tund showed him another file. I have a contact at the land registry office. 3 properties owned by Okonkwo Developments were transferred this evening at 8:47 p.m. to a company called Diamond Holdings International. The documents appeared legitimate. Signatures, stamps, everything. How much? Current market value? About 215 million naira. The number was staggering. In one night, while his father lay in a hospital bed fighting for his life, Chidinma's syndicate had stolen more than twice what they'd originally taken from the company account. We need to stop those transfers, Chukwuemeka said, standing up. Who do we call? The land registry? A judge. At midnight? No one who can help us until morning. And by morning, I guarantee those properties will have been transferred again, maybe 3 or 4 more times, until tracking ownership becomes impossible. Tund's expression was grim. They're not just thieves, Emeka. They're professionals. Every move is calculated. Chukwuemeka's phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Against his better judgment, he answered. Enjoying the hospital? Chidinma's voice was smooth and mocking. I hope your father recovers. I really do. After all, he's carrying my baby's grandfather's genes. You planned this, Chukwuemeka said, his voice deadly quiet. All of it. The fake pregnancy was just to distract us while you robbed him blind. Oh, the pregnancy is real, darling. I'm just a better multitasker than you gave me credit for. She laughed, the sound like broken glass. Here's what happens next. You're going to convince your father to drop all charges against me. Every single one. In return, I'll make sure you get one of those 3 properties back. Just one. Call it a consolation prize. Or what? Or I disappear with 200 million naira, your father loses everything he built, and you get to explain to him why you couldn't save his legacy because you were too proud to make a deal. Her voice turned cold. You have 24 hours. After that, the properties get sold to overseas buyers, and the money vanishes into accounts you'll never find. Your choice, boy. Save your pride or save your father's company. The line went dead. Chukwuemeka looked at Tund, his mind racing. She wants us to drop the charges in exchange for one property. 24 hours. Don't do it. The moment you drop those charges, she wins completely. She keeps the money, avoids jail, and gets to use that baby as leverage forever. But if we don't, my father loses his life's work. The company could collapse. Employees lose their jobs. And he's lying in that hospital bed unable to fight back. Chukwuemeka paced the waiting room. What do I do? Tund was quiet for a long moment. Then, we make her think we're taking the deal. We tell her we'll drop the charges. But while she thinks she's won, we set a trap. What kind of trap? She offered one property back, right? That means she has to meet with you to arrange the transfer. And when she does, we'll have everything ready. Police, lawyers, evidence, cameras. We catch her in the act of bribery and corruption. Add that to the existing fraud charges, and we bury her so deep she never sees daylight again. It was risky. If Chidinma suspected anything, she'd vanish. But it was better than either giving up or losing everything. Set it up, Chukwuemeka said. But I want one more thing. I want to find out who the woman pretending to be Ngozi really was. Because if we can identify her, we can connect her to Chidinma and prove conspiracy. Tund nodded. I'll start with facial recognition software and cross-reference with known associates of Ikena Obesai. Meanwhile, you need rest. Your father needs you sharp tomorrow, not exhausted. But Chukwuemeka couldn't rest. After Tund left, he returned to his father's room and sat in the chair beside the bed, watching the monitors track each heartbeat. The man who'd raised him, who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd survived his wife's death with dignity and grace, reduced to this fragile state by a woman who saw him as nothing more than a target. Around 3 a.m, Chief Obiora's eyes fluttered open. Emeka. I'm here, Dad. What happened? Where? He tried to sit up, and the monitors beeped faster. You're in the hospital. You had a cardiac event. But you're going to be okay. Chukwuemeka pressed his father's hand. Just rest. Don't try to talk. But Chief Obiora gripped his son's hand with surprising strength. The properties. Did they? They got them. All 3. 215 million naira. Chukwuemeka couldn't lie. Not now. I'm sorry, Dad. I should have seen it coming. Instead of anger, Chief Obiora's face showed resignation. Your mother always said I cared too much about buildings and not enough about people. Maybe she was right. Maybe losing all of this is exactly what I deserve for being blind. Don't say that. You're a good man who trusted the wrong person. That's not a character flaw, it's human nature. Then why does it feel like I've failed everyone? You, your mother's memory, my employees. Chief Obiora's eyes filled with tears. I'm supposed to be strong. Instead, I'm lying in a hospital bed while that woman destroys everything. She hasn't destroyed everything. She's stolen money and property, but she hasn't touched what really matters. Chukwuemeka leaned closer. Dad, I need to know. Do you want me to stop her, even if it means fighting back harder? Even if it gets messier before it gets better? Chief Obiora met his son's eyes, and for a moment, the old steel returned. I want her to pay for every lie, every theft, every moment of humiliation. But not at the cost of your safety or your soul. Promise me, Emeka, whatever you do, you stay on the right side of the law. We don't become monsters to fight monsters. I promise. A nurse entered to check vitals, and Chukwuemeka was ushered out. He stood in the hospital corridor, exhaustion finally catching up with him. His phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. We need to meet. I have information about Chidinma's next target. Come alone to Elegushi Beach tomorrow at noon. Trust me, you need to hear this. A friend. Chukwuemeka stared at the message, every instinct screaming trap. But what choice did he have? They were running out of time, out of money, and out of options. If there was even a chance this friend could help them get ahead of Chidinma's next move, he had to take it. He texted back, I'll be there. Outside the hospital, Lagos was beginning to wake up. Dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. Generators hummed to life, food vendors set up their stalls, traffic started its daily cacophony. Somewhere in this massive city, Chidinma was probably sleeping peacefully, confident in her victory. But Chukwuemeka wasn't ready to surrender. Not while his father fought for every breath. Not while that woman walked free with stolen millions. Not while the lie of her pregnancy hung over their family like a sword. Tomorrow at noon, he'd go to Elegushi Beach. He'd meet this mysterious friend. And he'd find a way to turn the tables on Chidinma Okeke, no matter what it took. What would you do in Chukwuemeka's position? Let me know in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This story is building to an explosive conclusion. The morning sun beat down on Elegushi Beach as Chukwuemeka walked across the sand, scanning the scattered groups of tourists and locals for whoever had sent him that cryptic message. The Atlantic Ocean rolled in with steady waves, and the smell of suya from nearby vendors mixed with salt air. He'd left his father at the hospital under Tun's watch, with strict instructions to call the police if Chukwuemeka didn't check in by 1 p.m. A woman in sunglasses and a flowing yellow Ankara dress approached him from near the waterline. As she got closer, Chukwuemeka recognized her. Patience Okafor, the wealthy widow Tund had identified in the photographs from Chidinma's Lekki house. Mrs. Okafor? Chukwuemeka said warily. You're the friend who texted me? She removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes red from crying. Mr. Okonkwo, I know what you must think of me. But I'm not part of their syndicate. I'm another victim, just like your father. You were photographed at a meeting with Chidinma and Ikenna Obesai. My investigator has proof. That meeting was where I confronted them. They stole 47 million naira from my late husband's estate 3 years ago. I tracked them down, and I've been trying to gather enough evidence to put them in prison ever since. She gestured to a quieter spot under a palm tree. Please, let me explain. We don't have much time. They sat on the sand, and Patience pulled out a tablet from her bag. My husband, Chief Okafor, died 5 years ago. Before he passed, he told me someone had been embezzling from his shipping company. He was investigating, but then he had a stroke, except I don't think it was natural. I think they poisoned him. Who's they? A network of thieves operating across West Africa. Chidinma is just one player. There's Ikenna, obviously. But the real brains behind the operation is my own son, Obinna. Chukwuemeka stared at her. Your son is part of this? Patience's hands shook as she scrolled through files on her tablet. I discovered it by accident 2 years ago. I was looking through Obinna's laptop when he left it at my house. I found communications with Chidinma, plans to target wealthy men, lists of potential victims. When I confronted him, he laughed in my face. Said I'd never prove it because they covered their tracks too well. She showed Chukwuemeka a video file. I've been secretly recording conversations, collecting evidence. But I couldn't go to the police because Obinna threatened my granddaughter. He said if I exposed him, something would happen to her. She's only 7 years old. Why tell me now? Because they're planning something that will destroy more than just your father's company. I overheard them talking 3 days ago. Patience's voice dropped to a whisper, even though they were alone. They're going to frame your father for money laundering. They've created fake transactions that make it look like he's been moving drug money through his real estate business for years. Once they leak that information to EFCC and the international press, his reputation will be destroyed forever. Even if he's eventually cleared, the damage will be permanent. The thought made Chukwuemeka sick. His father was already weak, fighting to recover. A scandal like that would finish him. When? Within the next 48 hours. They're waiting to see if you take Chidinma's deal about dropping charges. If you do, they'll still frame him just for revenge. If you don't, they'll do it to neutralize any threat you pose to their operation. So we can't win either way? Patience shook her head. There's one option they haven't considered: exposure. Not through police or courts, but through media and public pressure. If we can get everything out in the open, their names, their methods, their past victims, they'll have nowhere to hide. The public disgrace alone will force authorities to act, and they won't be able to bribe their way out of national attention. How do we do that? I have a contact at Lagos News Network, a reporter named Funmilayo Adebisi. She's been investigating financial crimes for years and has been looking for a story big enough to make her career. This is it. Patience pulled up a file labeled Evidence. I have 3 years of recordings, documents, transactions. Combined with what your investigator has found, we'd have enough to build an airtight case for national television. Chukwuemeka thought about it. Going public meant his father's near-disastrous wedding would be dissected on every news channel. It meant reliving the betrayal for all of Nigeria to see. But it also meant preventing Chidinma and her partners from targeting anyone else. "Why should I trust you?" he asked carefully. "For all I know, this is another trap." Patience stood up and walked to the water's edge. When she came back, her expression was resolute. "Because Chidinma is pregnant, Mr. Okonkwo. And that baby isn't your father's." The world tilted. "What?" "The father is Ikenna Obesai. She's been sleeping with him for over a year. The pregnancy is real, but the timing was manipulated to coincide with her relationship with your father. She's done this before, gotten pregnant by her partner Ikenna and then claimed the baby belonged to whatever mark she was running. It's part of their long-term strategy. Even if the mark discovers the con eventually, the paternity questions and custody battles tie them up for years and provide opportunities for more extortion." Chukwuemeka felt rage and relief warring inside him. "You can prove this?" "I have photographs of them together, hotel records, text messages. Enough to establish a pattern. And enough to get a court-ordered paternity test that will prove Chief Obiora isn't the father." She handed him the tablet. "It's all here. Everything you need." He scrolled through the files, his hands shaking. Months of evidence, meticulously documented. If this was real, it was exactly what they needed to destroy Chidinma's credibility and dismantle her entire operation. "Why now?" he asked again. "What changed?" Patience's voice broke. "Because yesterday, Obinna told me they're planning to kill Ikenna's real wife. Ngozi is still alive, being held somewhere. They can't let her go because she knows too much, but they can't keep her indefinitely. So they're going to stage her death, make it look like suicide or an accident. And I can't let that happen. I've already lost my husband to these monsters. I won't have another woman's blood on my hands." The co-parenting conflict and domestic betrayal spiraling into potential murder made everything more urgent. Chukwuemeka stood up, decision made. "We go to this reporter. Today. We give her everything and let her run the story." He looked at Patience. "But I want your son arrested too. All of them. No deals, no exceptions." Agreed. Obinna made his choice. Now he faces the consequences. They left the beach and drove to the Lagos News Network studios in Victoria Island. Funmilayo Adebisi turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened to their story with increasing interest. When they showed her the evidence, her eyes lit up. "This is Pulitzer-level material," she said, already typing notes. "Give me 18 hours. I'll have a full investigation piece ready for tomorrow's primetime slot. But I need to verify everything independently. I can't just take your word for it." "We don't have 18 hours," Chukwuemeka protested. They're planning to frame my father within 48 hours. And Ngozi Obesai's life is in danger. Funmaleo leaned back in her chair. Then we do this smart. I run a teaser tonight, just enough to let them know we're onto them. Breaking investigation into fraud syndicate targeting Lagos elite. No names yet, but enough to panic them. Panicked criminals make mistakes. Then tomorrow, we drop the full story with all the evidence. And if they run before then, where are they going to run? Their money is in properties and offshore accounts that take time to liquidate. Their identities are compromised. And once this story breaks, even the teaser, every airport, every border crossing will be watching for them. Funmaleo pulled up a production schedule on her computer. Trust me, Mr. Okonkwo. I've been doing this for 20 years. The fastest way to catch them is to make them think they're about to be caught. They'll scramble, expose themselves, and that's when authorities move in. Patience nodded. She's right. If we go to the police now, Obina and the others will be tipped off. They have officers on payroll. But if this goes public first, those officers can't protect them without exposing themselves. Chukwuemeka looked between the two women, then at the tablet full of evidence that could end this nightmare. Okay. But I want updates every hour. And if Ngozi's situation becomes critical, we go to the police immediately, Funmaleo finished. I'm a journalist, not a vigilante. Saving lives comes before breaking stories. They spent the next 3 hours going through evidence with Funmaleo and her production team. By late afternoon, Chukwuemeka's phone was buzzing with messages from Tund, asking where he was. He texted back, making progress. Stay with Dad. We'll explain soon. At 6 p.m., Funmaleo's teaser ran during the evening news. Lagos News Network has uncovered evidence of a sophisticated fraud syndicate operating in the city, targeting wealthy individuals through romance scams and identity theft. A full investigation report will air tomorrow at 8 p.m. If you or someone you know has been approached by suspicious individuals promising love or investment opportunities, contact our tip line immediately. The newsroom erupted in activity as calls started flooding in. Apparently, Chidinma and her partners had more victims than even patients had realized. Within an hour, they had 17 new potential victims calling in with similar stories. Widowers and wealthy businessmen who'd been courted by beautiful women, lost money in suspicious investments, or had properties mysteriously transferred. Chukwuemeka's phone rang. Chidinma. You think you're clever? Her voice was ice. Running to the media like a coward? I think I'm doing what I should have done from the beginning, making sure everyone knows exactly who you are. You just signed your father's death warrant. That money laundering evidence? It's already been sent to EFCC. By tomorrow morning, your father will be arrested on live television. How's that for public disgrace? Do it. Because by tomorrow night, the entire country will know you're a fraud, a thief, and a liar. Your face will be on every news channel. Your real name, your fake identities, your past victims, everything. You'll never be able to run this con again. There was silence on the line. Then, you have no idea what you've started. These people I work with, they don't forgive loose ends. And you and your father just became very loose ends. The line went dead. Chukwuemeka immediately called Tund. We need security at the hospital. She just threatened my father. Already on it. I had a feeling things would escalate. I've got 3 armed guards on his floor, and I'm here personally. Tund's voice was steady. But Emeka, you need protection too. Where are you? Lagos News Network Studios. I'm safe here. Too many witnesses. Stay there until I can send someone to escort you home. Don't go anywhere alone. After ending the call, Chukwuemeka felt the weight of the last week crash down on him. His father was in the hospital with a weak heart. His family's reputation was in tatters. 200 million naira had been stolen. And now they were racing against criminals desperate enough to threaten murder. Funmaleo appeared with coffee and a concerned expression. That sounded tense. She threatened my father. Probably empty threats, but No threat from someone with this much to lose is empty. Funmaleo sat beside him. Listen, I've been doing some additional research while you were on the phone. Chidinma Okeke isn't just a con artist. She has connections to a larger network, international money laundering, possibly even human trafficking. Those properties your father lost? They're probably being used to move illegal funds for bigger players. Human trafficking? Chukwuemeka felt sick. It's speculation based on patterns I've seen in other investigations. But if I'm right, exposing her doesn't just save your father, it might save dozens of other victims we don't even know about yet. Funmaleo pulled up a map on her tablet. These are properties across Lagos that were purchased in the last 3 years by shell companies with similar ownership structures. 27 properties total. If they're all part of the same network, we're talking about hundreds of millions in criminal assets. Patience had been quiet, but now she spoke up. There's a warehouse in Apapa. Obinna mentioned it once. Said they used it for special storage. I always wondered what that meant. Special storage for what? Chukwuemeka asked. I don't know. But it's not one of the properties on this map, which means it's not registered to any of their known shell companies. It might be their central operation base, where they keep documents, where they plan, maybe even where they're holding Ngozi. Funmaleo was already dialing. I'm calling my contact at the Rapid Response Squad. If there's even a chance Ngozi is being held there, we need police to check it out immediately. While Funmaleo made arrangements, Chukwuemeka looked at Patience. After this is over, after they're all arrested, what happens to you? I lose my son. I gain my peace. Patience's voice was sad but firm. Obinna chose his path. I can't save him from himself. But I can save his daughter from growing up thinking this kind of life is acceptable. Sometimes love means letting go, even when it destroys you. At 8 p.m., Funmaleo's team had confirmed the warehouse location and police were en route. The RRS commander had agreed to let a camera crew accompany them. The media exposure would prevent any corrupt officers from derailing the operation. Chukwuemeka watched on the newsroom monitors as the raid unfolded live. Police vehicles surrounded a decrepit warehouse near Apapa port. Loudspeakers ordered anyone inside to come out with hands raised. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then the warehouse doors burst open, and people started running. Not criminals, but women. At least a dozen women in shabby clothes, some carrying babies, stumbling out into the floodlights looking terrified and confused. Oh my God, Funmaleo whispered. They weren't just running financial scams. They were holding trafficking victims. Police moved in, securing the scene. Officers brought out boxes of documents, computers, and most importantly, 3 people in handcuffs. One of them was the woman who'd pretended to be Ngozi Obesai at the hotel. Among the rescued women, cameras captured someone Chukwuemeka recognized from photographs. The real Ngozi Obesai, thin and traumatized but alive. His phone rang. Ikenna Obesai's number. You destroyed everything. Ikenna's voice was shaking with rage. My family, my career, my life, destroyed because you couldn't mind your own business. You destroyed yourself when you kidnapped your wife and helped steal millions from innocent people, Chukwuemeka shot back. Where's Chidinma? Where's Obinna? Gone. Disappeared an hour ago when they realized the news was closing in. But they left me behind to take the fall. Ikenna laughed bitterly. 10 years of partnership, and they abandoned me the second things got difficult. I hope you're happy. I'll be happy when all 3 of you are in prison. Chidinma's pregnant, you know, with my child. Whatever happens now, part of me continues. There was something unhinged in Ikenna's voice. She promised we'd raise the baby together after we made enough money to disappear. I actually believed her. How pathetic is that? Before Chukwuemeka could respond, he heard shouting through Ikenna's phone, then police voices, "Put down the weapon. Put it down now. Tell Chief Obiora I'm sorry," Ikenna said quietly. Then a gunshot, and the line went dead. Funmaleo was getting updates through her earpiece. Ikenna Obesai just shot himself at his Victoria Island home. Police arrived to arrest him, and he pulled a gun. He's dead. The newsroom fell silent. Even in the midst of justice being served, the reality of a man choosing death over facing consequences was sobering. Chukwuemeka thought about Ikena's 3 children, now without either parent, their mother rescued from captivity, their father dead by his own hand. "We need to find Chidinma and Obinna before they escape Nigeria," Chukwuemeka said, standing up. "They're the ones who orchestrated all of this. We can't let them get away." Funmilayo nodded. "Immigration has been alerted. Their photos are being distributed to every airport and border crossing as we speak. But Emeka, they've been planning this for years. They probably have escape routes we can't imagine. Then we make it impossible for them to use those routes. We run the full story tonight, not tomorrow. Right now, while they're on the run and panicking." Funmilayo considered it, then nodded. "Okay. But you need to be part of it. Tell your story on camera. Let the whole country see what they did to your family. Make it personal." 20 minutes later, Chukwuemeka sat under studio lights, facing Funmilayo's camera, and told the story of his father's attempted wedding, the betrayal, the theft, and the larger criminal network they'd uncovered. He showed the fake pregnancy document, explained the pattern of cons across multiple victims, and pleaded for anyone who'd been targeted to come forward. The segment aired at 9 p.m. to an audience of millions. By 9:30 p.m., social media was exploding with the story. By 10 p.m., other news channels were picking it up. By 11 p.m., it was trending across Africa. And somewhere in Lagos, Chidinma Okeke and Obinna Okafor were watching their faces appear on every screen, knowing their criminal empire was collapsing around them. What do you think? Will they escape or get caught? Drop your predictions in the comments. And if you're hooked on this story, share it with someone who loves real drama. Don't forget to subscribe. At midnight, Chukwuemeka finally returned to the hospital, exhausted but wired with adrenaline. Tund met him at the entrance with an update. Chief Obiora had seen the news broadcast from his hospital bed and was demanding to see his son immediately, doctor's orders be damned. When Chukwuemeka entered room 304, he found his father sitting up, looking stronger than he had in days. The television was still on, replaying clips from the news segment. "You did it," Chief Obiora said, his voice rough with emotion. "You saved everything." "Not everything, Dad. They still have 200 million naira and your properties. Ikena's dead, but Chidinma and Obinna are in the wind. Money and buildings can be replaced. What you saved was something more important, the truth. Our reputation. The ability to fight back." Chief Obiora extended his hand, and Chukwuemeka took it. "Your mother would be so proud of you right now." "I know I am." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, years of unspoken emotions passing between them. Then Chief Obiora's phone rang, his lawyer, Folake Ibrahim. "Chief, I have news." Folake's voice came through the speaker. "EFCC just called. They received the fake money laundering evidence about you, but after seeing tonight's news broadcast, they're treating it as part of the fraud case against Chidinma's syndicate. They're not pursuing charges against you. Instead, they want your cooperation in tracking the stolen assets." Relief washed over Chief Obiora's face. "Thank God. There's more. The land registry has frozen all property transfers made in the last 72 hours pending investigation. That means your 3 buildings can't be sold until the courts sort out the legitimate ownership. It's not a full recovery yet, but it's a start." After ending the call, Chief Obiora looked at his son with renewed determination. "We're going to rebuild. Stronger this time. But first, we need to make sure those 2 don't escape justice." Chukwuemeka's phone buzzed with a text from Patience Okafor, there at the Seme border trying to cross into Benin Republic. "Border Patrol has them detained. You need to get there now before they bribe their way through." "Dad, I have to go." "Go. Finish this." Chief Obiora gripped his hand tighter. "But be careful. Cornered criminals are the most dangerous kind." The drive to Seme border took 90 minutes through the night, with Tund at the wheel and Chukwuemeka in the passenger seat. They arrived at the border crossing just before 2 a.m. to find a scene of controlled chaos. Nigerian immigration officers had 2 people detained in the processing building, Chidinma Okeke and Obinna Okafor. The senior immigration officer, a stern-faced woman named Commander Adeyemi, explained the situation. They tried to cross using fake Ghanaian passports. Very good fakes, but our facial recognition system flagged them because of the news alerts. They've been demanding lawyers and making threats for the last hour. Through the glass partition, Chukwuemeka could see Chidinma. Even now, detained and facing arrest, she maintained her composure. Her hair was pulled back, she wore simple jeans and a t-shirt, nothing like the glamorous bride or the professional con artist. She looked almost ordinary, which somehow made her more frightening. Obinna Okafor sat slumped in a chair beside her, his head in his hands. He looked defeated, broken. The confident businessman from the surveillance photos had been replaced by someone who knew his life was over. "Can I talk to them?" Chukwuemeka asked. Commander Adeyemi frowned. "That's highly irregular. They're in custody pending transfer to Lagos for prosecution." 5 minutes. "I just need 5 minutes to understand why she did this." The commander considered it, then nodded. 5 minutes. "But an officer stays in the room with you." Chukwuemeka entered the detention room, and Chidinma's eyes locked onto his. She smiled, that same warm, genuine-looking smile that had fooled his father. "Come to gloat?" she asked. "Come to understand. My father loved you. Or thought he did. Why target him? Why not just find someone who actually wanted what you were offering?" Chidinma leaned back in her chair. "You really don't get it, do you? This was never about your father specifically. He was just another mark, another wealthy widower with exploitable vulnerabilities. I didn't target him personally. I targeted his demographic. People grieving their dead spouses? People who confuse loneliness with love. Your father wanted to fill a void your mother left. I simply offered to be that filler, for a price." She shrugged. "It's business. Nothing personal. You stole 200 million naira from his company. You faked a pregnancy. You almost killed him with the stress. How is that not personal?" "Because I would have done it to anyone. That's the point." Chidinma's expression hardened. "You think you're better than me? Your father built his wealth on construction contracts. Do you think every building deal he made was perfectly ethical? Please. Everyone in Lagos knows you don't get rich without bending rules, exploiting workers, bribing officials. I'm just more honest about being dishonest." Chukwuemeka felt anger rising. "My father built something real. You just steal from people and destroy lives. I provide a service. These wealthy men get companionship, attention, someone who makes them feel important. They pay for that feeling. Is it my fault they assume marriage means something different than it does to me?" Chidinma smiled coldly. "And the pregnancy? That baby is real, and it's mine. Whether the father is Ikenna or your dad or someone else, does it really matter? The child will be provided for. I'm not a monster." "Ikenna's dead," Chukwuemeka said quietly. "He shot himself when police came to arrest him." For the first time, Chidinma's composure cracked. Her face went pale, and her hand instinctively moved to her still flat stomach. "He what? Killed himself. Rather than face prison. The father of your child is dead because of the life you dragged him into." Tears appeared in Chidinma's eyes, real tears, not the manipulative ones she'd used so skillfully before. "No. No, that's not. We had plans. We were supposed to disappear together." "He wasn't supposed to," she broke off, covering her face with her hands. Obinna spoke for the first time, his voice hollow. "We're done, Chidinma. It's over. They have everything, the evidence, the victims, the money trail. My mother testified against us. Ikenna's dead. We lost." "Shut up," Chidinma hissed. "We still have options. We still have." "We have nothing," Obinna shouted, standing up. The immigration officer moved closer, hand on his weapon. "I'm done destroying lives for money that I'll never get to spend because I'll be in prison. My own mother chose to destroy me rather than let this continue. Don't you understand? We became the monsters. Chidinma stared at him, then at Chukwuemeka. The facade was completely gone now, replaced by something raw and desperate. I'm pregnant. Doesn't that count for anything? Are they really going to send a pregnant woman to prison? Yes, Chukwuemeka said simply. Because being pregnant doesn't erase what you did. My father almost died. Real Ngozi Obesai was held captive for months. 17 other victims lost money and trust and years of their lives. Your baby will be cared for, probably by social services, maybe by Ikena's family if they choose. But you're going to face justice. He stood to leave, but Chidinma called out, Wait, the money, the 200 million. If I tell you where it is, if I help you recover it, will they reduce my sentence? Chukwuemeka looked at her, this woman who'd nearly destroyed his family, now begging for mercy. Part of him wanted to walk away, let her face the full consequences. But another part, the part that sounded like his mother's voice, reminded him that mercy wasn't about what people deserved. Tell the prosecutors everything. Cooperate fully. Return every kobo you stole. And maybe, they'll show some leniency. But that's not my decision to make. The offshore accounts, Chidinma said quickly. Obina has the access codes. And there's a storage unit in Festac with physical documents for every property transfer, every victim, every transaction. Everything you'd need to recover the assets and prosecute anyone else involved. Commander Adeyemi was already taking notes. We'll pass this information to EFCC immediately. As Chukwuemeka left the detention room, he felt empty rather than triumphant. Justice was being served, but at what cost? Ikena's 3 children were orphans. Chidinma's unborn baby would grow up knowing its mother was a criminal. Patience Okafor had lost her son. And his father, his strong, proud father, would carry the scars of this betrayal forever. Outside, dawn was breaking over the border crossing. Tund leaned against their car, phone to his ear, coordinating with EFCC agents who were already en route to secure the storage unit and begin asset recovery. It's really over, Tund said when Chukwuemeka joined him. The syndicate's broken, the evidence is secured, and they're in custody. You did it. We did it, Chukwuemeka corrected. I couldn't have done this without you, without Patience, without everyone who helped. They drove back to Lagos as the sun rose, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. Chukwuemeka's phone buzzed constantly with messages. News outlets requesting interviews, lawyers providing updates, even some of the other victims thanking him for exposing the con that had targeted them too. But the only call he cared about was from his father. Come home, son. We have a lot of rebuilding to do. We're in the home stretch now. If you're loving this revenge story, hit that like button and drop a comment about your favorite moments so far. Subscribe for the final chapters. You won't want to miss how this all ends. 2 weeks after Chidinma's arrest, Chukwuemeka stood in his father's study, now functioning as a makeshift war room for asset recovery. The walls were covered with charts tracking the stolen properties, bank accounts, and victims. Chief Obiora had been released from the hospital 5 days earlier with strict orders to avoid stress, orders he was cheerfully ignoring as he threw himself into reclaiming what had been stolen. The EFCC recovered 93 million naira from the offshore accounts, Folake Ibrahim reported, spreading documents across the desk. Another 47 million is tied up in properties that are being liquidated. The rest, approximately 75 million, is still missing. Chidinma said she gave us everything, Chief Obiora said, his voice frustrated but controlled. He'd regained much of his strength, though Chukwuemeka could still see the toll the ordeal had taken in the new lines around his father's eyes. She gave us everything she controlled. But it's become clear that there were other players in the network who had access to portions of the money. Folake pulled up a file on her laptop. We're tracking 3 individuals who worked with the syndicate but weren't present at any of the meetings we documented. They're probably in other countries by now, having vanished the moment the news broke. Tund entered the study carrying his ever-present tablet. I have updates on Ngozi Obesai. She's been reunited with her children and is undergoing therapy for the trauma. But she wants to meet with you both to say thank you personally. Set it up, Chief Obiora said immediately. That woman suffered because of my blindness. The least I can do is hear her story. The meeting was arranged for that afternoon at a quiet restaurant in Lekki. Ngozi arrived looking healthier than she had the night of her rescue. She'd gained back some weight, her hair was styled, and she wore a simple but elegant dress. But her eyes still carried shadows. "Chief Okonkwo, Chukwuemeka," she said, her voice steady despite obvious nervousness. "Thank you for meeting me. I know this must be difficult after everything that happened." "You were a victim in all this," Chief Obiora said gently. "We're just grateful you survived." Over lunch, Ngozi told her full story. She discovered Ikena's affair with Chidinma almost a year earlier, but what had truly opened her eyes was finding documents showing money transfers. When she'd confronted Ikena, he'd initially tried to convince her it was a legitimate business investment. But Ngozi had persisted, and eventually, Ikena had come clean about being involved with a fraud syndicate. "He told me he'd gotten in over his head, that they'd threatened to hurt our children if he tried to leave," Ngozi explained, tears in her eyes. "I wanted to go to the police, but he convinced me we had to handle it carefully. Then one day, I followed him to that house in Lekki, hoping to gather evidence. That's when they caught me." 6 months, Chukwuemeka said quietly. "You were held for 6 months. In different locations. First the house in Badagry, then an apartment in Festac, finally back to Badagry. They moved me whenever they thought someone was getting too close to finding me." Ngozi's hand shook as she lifted her water glass. "The woman who pretended to be me at your hotel, her name is Adaora Chukwu. She's Chidinma's cousin. She specialized in playing different roles for their cons. We have her in custody," Tund assured her. "She's cooperating with prosecutors, hoping for a reduced sentence." "I hate them for what they did," Ngozi said with sudden intensity. "But I also hate myself for not being stronger, for not finding a way to escape sooner, for not protecting my children from the truth about their father." "You survived," Chief Obiora said firmly. "You did what you had to do to stay alive and make it back to your children. That takes more strength than most people can imagine." Ngozi looked at him with gratitude, then turned to Chukwuemeka. "I watched your interview on the news. The way you stood up at that wedding, exposed everything in front of all those people. That was incredible. You saved your father before it was too late. I wish I'd been that brave." "You were brave," Chukwuemeka replied. "You're still brave. You're here, telling your story, helping build the case against them. That's courage." After lunch, as they walked to their cars, Ngozi pulled Chukwuemeka aside. "There's something else. Something I didn't mention in front of everyone because I'm not sure it matters anymore. But you should know, that baby Chidinma's carrying? Ikena told me during one of his visits to where I was held that it might not even be his. He said Chidinma had been sleeping with multiple men as part of their cons, and she wasn't sure who the father was." The revelation shouldn't have shocked Chukwuemeka anymore, but it did. The web of lies ran even deeper than they'd discovered. "Does it matter?" he asked. "She's in custody. The baby will be born in prison and placed with appropriate family or foster care. It matters because your father deserves to know the truth. All of it. So he can fully let go and move on." Ngozi squeezed his arm. "Don't let her have any more power over your family. Make sure he knows there's no connection, no obligation, no lingering questions." That evening, Chukwuemeka shared this information with his father. Chief Obiora listened in silence, then walked to the window of his study and stared out at the Lagos skyline. "I grieved that child," he said quietly. "When I thought it might be my grandchild, I grieved the life it would have, raised by a criminal mother, never knowing me, growing up with the stigma of this scandal. Now I don't even have that to grieve. It was just another lie in an ocean of lies." "Dad." "No, let me finish." Chief Obiora turned around, and Chukwuemeka was surprised to see his father smiling. "This is actually freeing. Knowing there's absolutely no biological connection, no reason to feel any obligation, it cuts the last thread tying me to her. I can truly move forward now." "Are you really okay?" "I'm getting there. Some days are harder than others. But Emeka, I need you to understand something. Chief Obiora crossed the room and put both hands on his son's shoulders. What happened with Chidinma? It wasn't love. I see that now. It was need, loneliness, fear of growing old alone. Your mother and I had love. Real love. What I felt for Chidinma was just an old man's desperate attempt to recapture something that can't be recaptured. You're not old, Dad. 58 years old and already had one heart attack. That's old enough to know better. But Chief Obiora's smile was genuine. From now on, I focus on what matters, rebuilding the company, spending time with you, honoring your mother's memory by living well. Not by trying to replace her. Over the next few weeks, the legal cases progressed. Chidinma and Obina were formally charged with fraud, identity theft, kidnapping, money laundering, and conspiracy. Eduora Chukwu, the woman who'd impersonated Ngozi, pled guilty in exchange for testifying against the others. Evidence from the Festac storage unit revealed an even larger network of victims, 23 people total who'd been conned over 8 years. EFCC managed to recover most of Chief Obiora's 3 stolen properties through legal challenges to the fraudulent transfers. The buildings were returned to Okonkwo Developments, though the legal fees and lost rental income represented significant losses. Patience Okafor visited the Okonkwo mansion one afternoon, looking older and sadder than when Chukwuemeka had first met her on Elagushi Beach. Obina's trial starts next month, she said, accepting tea from the house staff. His lawyers are trying for a plea deal, but the prosecutors want maximum sentences for everyone involved. He could get 20 years. I'm sorry, Chief Obiora said, and meant it. No mother should have to watch her child face that. He chose his path. I tried to save him, tried to guide him toward legitimate business, but he wanted the fast money, the easy life. Patience's hands shook slightly as she lifted her teacup. My granddaughter asks about her father every day. What do I tell her? How do I explain that Daddy did bad things and has to be punished? You tell her the truth, in ways she can understand, Chukwuemeka suggested. That her father made mistakes, that actions have consequences, but that she's still loved and not defined by his choices. I've set up a trust fund for her education and care, Patience said. Money from my own accounts, nothing connected to Obina's crimes. At least one good thing can come from this disaster. She'll have opportunities he threw away. After Patience left, Chukwuemeka found himself thinking about all the collateral damage from Chidinma's Ikena's 3 children, orphaned. Obina's daughter, losing her father to prison. The baby Chidinma was carrying, who would be born into chaos. 17 other victims and their families, dealing with betrayal and financial loss. Are we doing enough? He asked his father that evening as they reviewed company accounts in the study. We recovered our money, got our properties back, put the criminals in jail. But what about everyone else who was hurt? Chief Obiora looked up from the financial statements. What did you have in mind? A victims support fund. We use some of the recovered money to help other victims with legal fees, counseling, financial planning. Make sure Chidinma's damage doesn't define the rest of their lives. Chief Obiora smiled, the first truly joyful smile Chukwuemeka had seen from his father since before the attempted wedding. Your mother would love that idea. In fact, she'd probably want us to make it bigger. A foundation, maybe. Not just for fraud victims, but for anyone dealing with domestic betrayal, infidelity in marriage, financial abuse. The Adiz Okonkwo Foundation, Chukwuemeka suggested. Named after Mom. Perfect. We'll start small, help the victims from this case first. Then we expand. Turn this nightmare into something meaningful. Chief Obiora stood up and embraced his son. This is how we truly win, Emeka. Not just by defeating them, but by making sure their evil produces something good. That night, Chukwuemeka couldn't sleep. He lay in bed thinking about the journey from that moment at the wedding when he'd stood up and objected, to now, planning a foundation to help others. So much had changed. His father had nearly died. Criminals had been exposed. Lives had been shattered and others saved. His phone buzzed with a message from Tund. Funmaleo's follow-up investigation just won a National Journalism Award. Your story is making a real difference. 12 more victims of similar cons have come forward in other cities. The ripple effect is huge. Chukwuemeka smiled in the darkness. Maybe that was the real victory. Not just stopping one con artist, but exposing a system that preyed on people's loneliness and trust. Creating awareness that might save future victims. Tomorrow, he and his father would meet with lawyers to officially establish the foundation. They'd use Chidinma's crimes to create something that honored his mother's memory and helped healing begin for everyone affected. As he finally drifted off to sleep, Chukwuemeka realized he felt something he hadn't felt in months: hope. This story gets better with every chapter. Are you ready for the final 2 chapters? Drop a like if you want to see how everything resolves, and don't forget, we've got a special ending coming. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I can truly move forward now. Are you really okay? I'm getting there. Some days are harder than others. But Emeka, I need you to understand something. Chief Obiora crossed the room and put both hands on his son's shoulders. What happened with Chidinma? It wasn't love. I see that now. It was need, loneliness, fear of growing old alone. Your mother and I had love. Real love. What I felt for Chidinma was just an old man's desperate attempt to recapture something that can't be recaptured. You're not old, Dad. 58 years old and already had 1 heart attack. That's old enough to know better. But Chief Obiora's smile was genuine. From now on, I focus on what matters: rebuilding the company, spending time with you, honoring your mother's memory by living well. Not by trying to replace her. Over the next few weeks, the legal cases progressed. Chidinma and Obinna were formally charged with fraud, identity theft, kidnapping, money laundering, and conspiracy. Eduora Chukwu, the woman who'd impersonated Ngozi, pled guilty in exchange for testifying against the others. Evidence from the Festac storage unit revealed an even larger network of victims, 23 people total who'd been conned over 8 years. EFCC managed to recover most of Chief Obiora's 3 stolen properties through legal challenges to the fraudulent transfers. The buildings were returned to Okonkwo Developments, though the legal fees and lost rental income represented significant losses. Patience Okafor visited the Okonkwo mansion one afternoon, looking older and sadder than when Chukwuemeka had first met her on Elagushi Beach. Obinna's trial starts next month, she said, accepting tea from the house staff. His lawyers are trying for a plea deal, but the prosecutors want maximum sentences for everyone involved. He could get 20 years. I'm sorry, Chief Obiora said, and meant it. No mother should have to watch her child face that. He chose his path. I tried to save him, tried to guide him toward legitimate business, but he wanted the fast money, the easy life. Patience's hands shook slightly as she lifted her teacup. My granddaughter asks about her father every day. What do I tell her? How do I explain that Daddy did bad things and has to be punished? You tell her the truth, in ways she can understand, Chukwuemeka suggested. That her father made mistakes, that actions have consequences, but that she's still loved and not defined by his choices. I've set up a trust fund for her education and care, Patience said. Money from my own accounts, nothing connected to Obinna's crimes. At least one good thing can come from this disaster. She'll have opportunities he threw away. After Patience left, Chukwuemeka found himself thinking about all the collateral damage from Chidinma's Khan's Ikena's 3 children, orphaned. Obinna's daughter, losing her father to prison. The baby Chidinma was carrying, who would be born into chaos. 17 other victims and their families, dealing with betrayal and financial loss. Are we doing enough? He asked his father that evening as they reviewed company accounts in the study. We recovered our money, got our properties back, put the criminals in jail. But what about everyone else who was hurt? Chief Obiora looked up from the financial statements. What did you have in mind? A victims support fund. We use some of the recovered money to help other victims with legal fees, counseling, financial planning. Make sure Chidinma's damage doesn't define the rest of their lives. Chief Obiora smiled, the first truly joyful smile Chukwuemeka had seen from his father since before the attempted wedding. Your mother would love that idea. In fact, she'd probably want us to make it bigger. A foundation, maybe. Not just for fraud victims, but for anyone dealing with domestic betrayal, infidelity in marriage, financial abuse. The Adiz Okonkwo Foundation, Chukwuemeka suggested. Named after Mom. Perfect. We'll start small, help the victims from this case first. Then we expand. Turn this nightmare into something meaningful. Chief Obiora stood up and embraced his son. This is how we truly win, Emeka. Not just by defeating them, but by making sure their evil produces something good. That night, Chukwuemeka couldn't sleep. He lay in bed thinking about the journey from that moment at the wedding when he'd stood up and objected, to now, planning a foundation to help others. So much had changed. His father had nearly died. Criminals had been exposed. Lives had been shattered and others saved. His phone buzzed with a message from Tund. Funmaleo's follow-up investigation just won a National Journalism Award. Your story is making a real difference. 12 more victims of similar cons have come forward in other cities. The ripple effect is huge. Chukwuemeka smiled in the darkness. Maybe that was the real victory. Not just stopping one con artist, but exposing a system that preyed on people's loneliness and trust. Creating awareness that might save future victims. Tomorrow, he and his father would meet with lawyers to officially establish the foundation. They'd use Chidinma's crimes to create something that honored his mother's memory and helped healing begin for everyone affected. As he finally drifted off to sleep, Chukwuemeka realized he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. This story gets better with every chapter. Are you ready for the final 2 chapters? Drop a like if you want to see how everything resolves, and don't forget, we've got a special ending coming. Subscribe so you don't miss it. 4 months after the wedding disaster, Chukwuemeka stood in the lobby of the Lagos High Court, watching as Chidinma Okeke was led into the courtroom in handcuffs. Her pregnancy was now visible. She was 5 months along, and she moved slowly, one hand supporting her back. Even in prison-issued clothing with no makeup, she maintained an odd dignity that made Chukwuemeka understand how she'd fooled so many people. Chief Obiora sat in the front row of the courtroom gallery, his face impassive. He'd insisted on attending every day of the trial, saying he needed to see it through to the end. Beside him sat Ngozi Obesai, who'd become an unexpected friend to the Okonkwo family over the past months. Her children were with her mother today, spared from witnessing their father's former mistress face justice. The prosecution had built an airtight case. 23 victims testified about losing money, property, and years of their lives to Chidinma's schemes. Forensic accountants traced 237 million naira through shell companies and offshore accounts. Digital forensics experts presented text messages and emails proving conspiracy. But it was Patience Okafor's testimony that had been most devastating. She'd spent 3 days on the stand, methodically detailing how her own son Obinna had recruited Chidinma into the family's criminal enterprise, how they'd planned each con, and how they'd threatened anyone who got too close to the truth. Her voice never wavered, even when describing how Obinna had helped cover up suspicions about Chief Okafor's death. That took courage, Chief Obiora had said after Patience's testimony. Destroying your own child to save others. Now, as the judge entered and everyone rose, Chukwuemeka felt the weight of the moment. This was it. After months of investigation, revelation, and legal maneuvering, justice would finally be pronounced. In the matter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Chidinma Okeke, the judge began, his voice carrying through the packed courtroom. The court has reviewed all evidence, testimony, and legal arguments presented. The defendant has been found guilty on all counts: 16 counts of fraud, 8 counts of identity theft, 5 counts of money laundering, 3 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. Chidinma didn't react. She simply stared straight ahead, her hands resting on her pregnant belly. The severity and premeditated nature of these crimes cannot be overstated, the judge continued. The defendant showed no remorse throughout this trial. She exploited the grief and loneliness of vulnerable individuals for personal gain. She kidnapped and held a woman captive for months. She participated in a criminal enterprise that destroyed lives and families across multiple states. The judge paused, looking directly at Chidinma. However, the court must also consider the defendant's pregnancy. While this does not absolve her of responsibility, it presents unique circumstances regarding immediate incarceration. Chukwuemeka felt his father tense beside him. Therefore, the court sentences Chidinma Okeke to 25 years imprisonment on the fraud charges, to be served consecutively with 15 years for kidnapping, 10 years for money laundering, and 5 years for conspiracy. Total sentence: 55 years in federal prison. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. 55 years meant Chidinma would be in her 80s before release, effectively a life sentence. However, the judge continued, execution of this sentence shall be delayed until after the birth of the defendant's child and appropriate medical recovery. The defendant will remain in custody at the secure medical facility until such time, after which she will be transferred to the federal prison. Chidinma finally reacted, her shoulders sagging with something that might have been relief or despair. Her lawyer immediately stood to speak, but the judge raised his hand. The court has made its decision. As for the child, social services will work with appropriate family members to determine permanent placement after birth. Any claims of paternity will be resolved through genetic testing once the child is born. As Chidinma was led away, she turned and locked eyes with Chief Obiora. For a moment, the mask slipped completely, and Chukwuemeka saw raw fear in her expression. Then she was gone, escorted through the side door back to custody. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed them. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust forward, reporters shouted questions. Folake Ibrahim stepped forward to give a brief statement on behalf of the Okonkwo family. Justice has been served today. We are grateful to the court, to the EFCC, and to all the brave victims who testified. Our focus now is on healing and helping others who have suffered similar betrayals. Back at the Okonkwo mansion, a small gathering of people who become family through this ordeal assembled in the living room. Ngozi and her children, Tun Bakare, Patience Okafor, Funmaleo Adebizi the journalist, and Folake Ibrahim. Even some of the other victims had come, a businessman from Ibadan named Adekunle, a doctor from Enugu named Chidi, a banker from Port Harcourt named Emeka. Chief Obiora raised a glass of champagne. To survival. To truth. To the difficult path of healing that starts today. To justice, someone added. To new beginnings, said another. They drank, and then Patience cleared her throat. I have news about Obinna. He's accepted a plea deal, 20 years, eligible for parole after 12 if he maintains good behavior and continues cooperation with authorities tracking the missing money. How do you feel about that? Ngozi asked gently. Relieved, I think. He'll still be young enough when he's released to rebuild some kind of life. And my granddaughter will have a chance to know him eventually, when she's old enough to understand. Patience's eyes were wet. It's not the ending I wanted for my son, but it's better than life in prison or death like Ikenna. The gathering gradually shifted from discussion of the trial to talk of the future. The Adiz Okonkwo Foundation was officially launching next month. They'd secured funding, hired staff, and partnered with counseling centers across Lagos to provide support for victims of domestic betrayal, financial fraud, and emotional manipulation. We've already had 47 people reach out requesting help, Chief Obiora explained. Everything from legal advice to therapy referrals to financial planning. The need is even greater than we imagined. Funmaleo was working on a documentary about the case that would air nationally. I want to focus not just on the crime, but on recovery. Show people that there's life after betrayal, that healing is possible. As the evening wore on and guests gradually departed, Chukwuemeka found himself alone with his father on the mansion's veranda, watching the sunset paint Lagos in shades of gold and amber. Do you think she'll serve the full 55 years? Chukwuemeka asked. No. She'll probably get parole after 30 or so if she behaves and cooperates. But by then, she'll be in her 60s. Her beauty will be gone, her tricks won't work anymore, and she'll have to face the rest of her life knowing what she threw away. Chief Obiora sipped his drink thoughtfully. That might be worse than prison itself, all those years to think about the choices she made. Do you ever wonder what she could have been if she'd used her intelligence and skills legitimately? Every day. She was brilliant in her way. The planning, the execution, the ability to read people and adapt. In another life, she could have been a successful businesswoman, psychologist, actress. Instead, she chose to be a predator. Chief Obiora looked at his son. But that was her choice. We can't waste energy mourning the person she could have been. We focus on who we are and who we want to become. Who do you want to become, Dad? Chief Obiora smiled. A better father. A man who honors his wife's memory not by trying to replace her, but by living up to the values she taught us. Someone who turns pain into purpose. He gestured at the city sprawling before them. This experience changed me, Emeka. I was arrogant, thought I was too smart to be fooled, too successful to be vulnerable. Chidinma taught me humility. And while I hate what she did, I'm grateful for what I learned. They sat in comfortable silence as night fell over Lagos. Somewhere in a secure medical facility, Chidinma was preparing for the birth of a child who would grow up without her. Somewhere in Ikoyi, Patience was tucking her granddaughter into bed with stories that didn't include her imprisoned father. Somewhere in Victoria Island, Ngozi was helping her children with homework, slowly rebuilding a life shattered by her husband's choices. And here, in this mansion that had almost been lost to fraud, a father and son were finding their way forward together. Chukwuemeka's phone buzzed with a message from one of the Foundation's early clients. A widow from Abuja who'd been targeted by a romance scammer but caught it in time thanks to the awareness raised by the Okonkwo case. "Thank you for speaking up," the message read. "You saved me from making a terrible mistake. God bless you and your family." He showed the message to his father, who read it with tears in his eyes. "This," Chief Obiora said softly, "this is why we don't give up. One person saved, one family protected, it makes everything worth it." As they headed inside for the night, Chukwuemeka felt a profound sense of peace. The story that began with a shocking objection at a wedding was ending with hope, healing, and purpose. Not the ending anyone would have chosen, but perhaps the ending everyone needed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: managing the Foundation, continuing to recover assets, supporting other victims. But tonight, they could rest knowing they'd faced the worst and survived. Justice had been served. Truth had prevailed. And in the ruins of betrayal, they'd built something meaningful. We're almost at the end. One more chapter to go. If this story has moved you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment about what you've learned from this journey. And stay tuned for the powerful conclusion. 8 months after the trial, Chukwuemeka stood in the conference room of the Adiz Okonkwo Foundation headquarters in Victoria Island, looking at the wall of photographs. Each picture represented a person or family they'd helped, victims of fraud, domestic betrayal, financial manipulation, and emotional abuse. There were 93 photographs now, and more were added each week. "We're making a difference," said Yetunde Oladipo, the Foundation's director. She was a sharp, compassionate woman in her 40s who'd herself survived an abusive marriage and understood the complexity of recovery. "But the need keeps growing. We're getting calls from other West African countries now, asking if we can expand our services." Chief Obiora, looking healthier than he had in years, reviewed the quarterly report with satisfaction. "We have the funding to open an office in Accra next year, possibly Abuja as well. The key is maintaining quality while scaling up." The Foundation had become more than either of them imagined. Beyond direct victim support, they'd launched educational programs teaching people how to recognize romance scams, financial fraud, and emotional manipulation. They'd partnered with law enforcement to improve how these cases were investigated. They'd even worked with tech companies to develop better verification tools for online dating and business relationships. "Your 3 o'clock is here," the receptionist announced over the intercom. "Ms. Okeke has arrived." The room fell silent. Chukwuemeka and Chief Obiora exchanged glances. They'd received the request 2 weeks ago through official channels. Chidinma wanted to meet with them. Her baby had been born 3 months prior, a healthy girl named Adeora. Genetic testing confirmed that Ikenna Obesai was indeed the father, and the baby had been placed with Ikenna's sister, who'd agreed to raise her alongside her own children. After giving birth and recovering, Chidinma had been transferred to the federal prison to begin serving her sentence. This visit had required special permission from prison authorities and would be supervised by guards. "You don't have to do this," Yetunde said to Chief Obiora. "After everything she put you through." "I know. But I need to hear what she has to say. Otherwise, I'll always wonder." Chief Obiora straightened his tie. "Besides, sometimes the person who hurt you most needs to see that they didn't break you." Chidinma entered the conference room escorted by 2 female prison guards. She wore a plain prison uniform, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup. She looked thin and tired, but her eyes were clear. The arrogance and manipulation that had characterized her before were gone, replaced by something that might have been genuine remorse. Chief Okonkwo, Chukwuemeka, thank you for agreeing to see me. Her voice was quiet, stripped of the confident charm she'd wielded so effectively. We have 30 minutes, one of the guards informed them. They sat across from each other at the conference table, victim and perpetrator, separated by more than just polished wood. I don't expect forgiveness, Chidinma began. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that tries to manipulate or make excuses, but genuine regret for what I did to you and your family. Chief Obiora's expression was unreadable. What changed? 4 months ago at your trial, you showed no remorse. Prison changes you. Having a baby and then losing her immediately, that changes you too. Chidinma's voice cracked. For the first time in my adult life, I couldn't con anyone, couldn't manipulate my way out, couldn't be anything except alone with my thoughts and my choices. And I realized how many lives I destroyed in pursuit of money I'll never get to spend. What about Ada Ora? Chukwuemeka asked. Your daughter. I signed away my parental rights. Ikena's sister will raise her, and that's best for everyone. She'll grow up with a stable family who loves her, without the stigma of having a criminal mother visiting from prison. Tears ran down Chidinma's face. But I think about her every day. Wonder if she'll be smart like her father, or stubborn like me. Hope she'll make better choices than either of her parents did. That's the first truly selfless thing I've heard you say, Chief Obiora observed. Prison gives you a lot of time to think about who you really are versus who you pretended to be. Turns out, I don't like the real me very much. Chidinma wiped her eyes. I heard about your foundation. The work you're doing to help victims. That's incredible, and I'm glad something good came from the terrible things I did. Why did you really ask to meet with us? Chukwuemeka asked directly. What do you want? Chidinma took a shaky breath. I wanted to look you in the eyes and take full responsibility. No excuses about my childhood, no blaming circumstances or other people. I chose to become a criminal. I chose to hurt people. And I'm sorry. And Chief Obiora prompted. There's something else. I have information about the 75 million naira that was never recovered. I didn't share it before because I thought maybe, somehow, I'd get out early and could access it. But I'm not getting out. Not for decades. And that money should go back to the victims who suffered. She pulled out a handwritten letter from her pocket and slid it across the table. Account numbers, passwords, locations of safe deposit boxes, names of people holding physical assets. Everything. I'm cooperating fully now, not for a deal, but because it's the right thing to do. Chukwuemeka took the letter, scanning the detailed information. If this was legitimate, they could recover most of the missing money. Why trust us with this instead of giving it directly to EFCC? He asked. Because I know you'll make sure it goes to the people who were actually hurt, not just into government coffers where it might disappear into other pockets. Chidinma looked at Chief Obiora. You're a good man. I knew that when I targeted you, and I targeted you anyway because good men seemed easy to exploit. I was wrong. Good men are the hardest to truly defeat because they keep getting back up. Chief Obiora was quiet for a long moment. Then, I accept your apology. Not because it changes what happened, but because I choose not to carry hatred in my heart. What you did was evil, but you're not irredeemable. Use your time in prison to become someone your daughter could be proud of if she ever wants to know you. I don't deserve your grace. None of us deserve grace. That's what makes it grace. Chief Obiora stood. I hope you find peace, Chidinma. Real peace, not the fake contentment that comes from successful cons. And I hope that 20 years from now, when you're eligible for parole, you'll have genuinely become a different person. As Chidinma was escorted out, she paused at the door. Chief Okonkwo, for what it's worth, There were moments when what I felt for you was real. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but it's true. You deserved someone who would love you genuinely, and I'm sorry I couldn't be that person." Then she was gone, back to the prison that would be her home for decades to come. Chukwuemeka looked at his father. "Do you believe her? The apology, the remorse. Was any of it real?" "I think so. But it doesn't really matter. Her sincerity doesn't change our responsibility to keep moving forward." Chief Obiora picked up the letter with the account information. "Let's get this to Folake and EFCC. If we can recover this money, we can help a lot more people." Over the next 6 weeks, authorities used Chidinma's information to recover 63 million of the missing 75 million naira. The money was distributed among the victims based on their losses, with some going to fund the foundation's expansion. It wasn't perfect. 12 million was still unaccounted for, but it was more than anyone had expected to recover. The foundation's one-year anniversary celebration was held at the same Pearl Gardens event center where Chief Obiora's wedding had been scheduled. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, but Chief Obiora insisted. "We transform pain into purpose," he said during his speech to the assembled guests. Victims they'd helped, volunteers, donors, and supporters. "This room witnessed one of the worst moments of my life. Today, it witnesses something beautiful born from that darkness." The foundation had helped 127 people in its first year. They'd prevented an estimated 200 million naira in fraud through their educational programs. They'd partnered with law enforcement to improve prosecution rates for these crimes. And they'd created a community where victims could support each other without shame. Ngozi Obesai, now working as a counselor at the foundation, spoke about her journey from captivity to healing. "I thought my life was over when they took me. I thought I'd never see my children again, never feel safe again. But with support, therapy, and time, I've rediscovered who I am beyond the trauma." That's what this foundation does. It doesn't just rescue people from immediate danger. It helps them rebuild entire lives. Patience Okafor announced that she was donating 50 million naira to create a scholarship fund for children of incarcerated parents. "My granddaughter shouldn't suffer because of her father's choices. Neither should any other child. This scholarship will help them get education and opportunities regardless of their parents' mistakes." As the celebration wound down, Chukwuemeka found himself on the same veranda where he'd first noticed something suspicious about Amara Nwosu, who turned out to be Chidinma Okeke. So much had changed since that day. His father had nearly died and recovered. Criminals had been caught. Lives had been saved. Tund Bakare joined him, holding a glass of champagne. "Thinking about how this all started?" "Yeah. If I hadn't followed my instincts that day, if I'd ignored what I saw, your father would probably be bankrupt or dead right now. You trusted yourself when it mattered most." Tund clinked his glass against Chukwuemeka's. "That's the real lesson here. Trust your instincts, speak up about injustice, fight for truth even when it's uncomfortable." Chief Obiora found them and wrapped an arm around his son's shoulders. "You know what your mother would say about all this?" "What?" "She'd say that love isn't just about romance and marriage. It's about standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. It's about turning suffering into service. It's about choosing every day to be better than the worst things that happen to you." Chief Obiora's voice was thick with emotion. "She'd be so proud of you, Emeka." "I know I am." They stood together watching the Lagos sunset, 3 men who'd faced darkness and chose light, who'd experienced betrayal and chose trust, who'd survived devastation and chose to build something meaningful from the ruins. Chukwuemeka's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I saw your foundation featured on the news. 5 years ago, I lost everything to a romance scammer and nearly took my own life. Today, I'm starting my own business thanks to the resources and counseling your foundation provided. Thank you for saving my life. Grace from Benin City." He showed the message to his father, who read it and smiled through tears. "This is why we don't give up," Chief Obiora said. "Every grace we save, every family we protect, every person who finds healing, it makes every painful moment worth it." As they headed back inside to rejoin the celebration, Chukwuemeka reflected on the journey from that shocking wedding interruption to this moment of hope and purpose. The infidelity in marriage, the domestic betrayal, the revenge story, all of it had transformed into something greater. Justice had been served. Truth had prevailed. Healing was happening. And in a city as complex and challenging as Lagos, the Adiz Okonkwo Foundation stood as proof that even the worst betrayals could give birth to powerful change. Chief Obiora had found something better than a new wife. He'd found renewed purpose. Chukwuemeka had discovered that courage wasn't just about confronting villains, but about building something lasting from the aftermath. And somewhere in a federal prison, Chidinma Okeke was learning that true transformation required facing the full weight of your choices and choosing, every single day, to become someone better. The story that began with a dramatic wedding objection had become a testament to resilience, family values, and the unbreakable human spirit. Not every ending is happy, but every ending can be meaningful. And for the Okonkwo family, that was enough. Thank you so much for sticking with this incredible journey. If this story touched you, moved you, or made you think twice about trust and betrayal, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who loves powerful storytelling. What was your favorite moment from this entire series? Drop it in the comments below. I love hearing from you. And let me know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to Tales by Ben and hit that notification bell so you never miss another gripping story. We've got more drama, more twists, and more emotional journeys coming your way.